to our to our ancestors, to our ancestors. Please surround us and give us the strength to overcome whatever hurdles we are going through as we move through these gateways. Whatever is keeping us stagnant, whatever is discouraging us, whatever is holding us back, let us have the knowledge and wisdom to understand what we must do to overcome this situation. And until we do get that knowledge, help us to find the small steps towards that part of our journey. Ancestors, help us find the leader within us so that we are not always seeking outwards, but are also able to turn inwards, to remember those things that we are learning throughout the Sacred Woman book and other resources that we might find. Help us to not only find these things, but also to apply them to our everyday life. Ashe. Welcome, beloved, to the Sankofa Ancestor Shrine. I'm your host, Sacred Woman Practitioner Tatami, and today we are going to be jumping back into the Sacred Woman book, starting on page 70. And I also, before we start though, wanted to remind you that there is a free PDF of this book, a prayer book with some proverbs as well and poetry for you to find inspiration to start your own prayer journey with the ancestors. And there's also the 2021 Spiritual Planner PDF, which you can use for the rest of the year, of course. You can also buy the paperback of, and it has not only the calendar, the daily calendar, the monthly calendar, etc., cleaning calendar, but it also has just a little information about several different concepts and ancestors in the hoodoo conjure rootwork tradition for African Americans, which I think other people in the ATR community might also find useful or interesting to know. All right, so like I said, I wanted us to head right back into the Sacred Woman book. Let's not waste any time. And today I did want us to go over the female reproductive system as well as discuss our own womb wellness and womb wellness profile. And obviously, I would hope that we're going to write this down in our womb journals that we have and made, or however it is you did. I've been working on mine a little bit. I cut some clippings out of this. It's kind of like Michael's, but it has a lot of like latch hook, mostly sewing type of stuff. I think it's called Hirschman's or something. And I just went through and was cutting out the puzzles and stuff, just the pretty pictures that they have for those, and gluing them at random into my journal, so that's occasionally on the pages there will be something pretty. So make sure you're hopefully keeping up with that, or some other form of artistic endeavor, or some way to pour out what it is you have inside while you're doing all this. Of course, there's also the Sanab Freedom Shawl that you could absolutely do. And I did end up making all of my patches and putting them all on a quilt that I'm making, that I, have so far called Sacred Woman. So I'm hoping to continue finishing that quilt, but I did finish all of my patches last year. I'm going to go back and see if I made sure I finished all the videos. I think I stopped just short of the last 2 or 3 patches making the videos. So I'm going to have to jump back into that, obviously. And if you are doing that, there are, so far in the year, you should be good if you are doing the Sanab Freedom Shawl as your artistic endeavor. But I chose to do it all in a year by itself because I found it kind of a lot to make a spiritual sewn patch for each of the gateways. It was a very hard thing. I felt it was very big, and there's just not a lot of information on it in the Sacred Woman book. At any rate, let's jump right into the rest of this. The female reproductive system. It's now time to explore the physiology of the womb so that we can make an inventory of what isn't in balance. By taking a long, hard look at what is not functioning properly, we can learn more about our bodies and begin to follow the path of wellness as informed women of wisdom. The reproductive organs, the reproductive organs. The main female reproductive organs are the uterus, the womb, the ovaries, the fallopian tubes, and the vagina. The female reproductive system. It is now time to explore the physiology of the womb so that we can make an inventory of what isn't in balance. By taking a long, hard look at what is not functioning properly, we can learn more about our bodies and begin to follow the path of wellness as informed people of wisdom. The reproductive organs. The main female reproductive organs are the uterus, the womb, ovaries, fallopian tubes, and the vagina. The uterus is the hollow muscular organ about 3 inches long, located deep inside the pelvic cavity. It houses the developing fetus. Okay, so the uterus is shown here in the book. If you have it, you'll notice on page 70. So we have the uterus labeled right here. It's this little hole over here, and then from the frontal view, it's this area right here. And down here we have the vagina, and here we have the fallopian tubes. So the cervix is the neck of the uterus projects into the vagina, right? So that is the part right here between the two. It's like black in the picture. And the fallopian tubes, the vagina is the tube about 4 inches long that receives the penis and sperm and serves as the birth canal. The fallopian tubes, a pair of structures each about 4 inches long, join the uterus near the top, and the flare ends lie near the ovaries. The ovaries, so we're talking about all of this right here. The ovaries are paired almond-shaped glands that produce ova, eggs, and female hormones. After an ovum is expelled into the pelvic cavity, it passes through a fallopian tube into the uterus. If the egg has been fertilized by sperm, it implants into the wall of the uterus and gestation begins. Okay, so I feel like this part is really important to note because it's important to be able to explain these types of things, especially, and understand what is going on exactly, and what is going on if somebody says that they have had a hysterectomy or a partial hysterectomy, right? These are important for when people say that they have fibroids, or when people, even when sometimes you may be working with people who just honestly just don't know these things, and they haven't ever thought to look it up, or they are too young, or they've just never been in a position where they've been able to do so. And so that, I think, is a really important role as a sacred woman, to understand the terminology and to understand where everything is and what everything is. And as for where, usually the womb is about 4 inches below the belly button. Your final finger there, you'll be able to put your hand right down there, and that is your womb. And so, when you get into being a sacred woman who may be laying hands on yourself or others, right, we often talk about doing womb massage, which we'll continue to do, and which I encourage you to do. We often put our hands up and massage our shoulders, but a lot of people just don't feel comfortable for whatever reason putting on some shea butter or oils onto their hand and laying hands on their womb and massaging there too. And that will also be something that you'll be able to get better at and understand your body, about more. And you may be able to help other people in your family, daughters, sisters, wives, who, you'll be able to help them also with this type of massage. Just very gentle, you're not trying to do deep tissue or anything, right? You're just doing something very gentle with an infused oil, perhaps with a magically infused, herbally infused, both preferably, right? And so, just blessing the oil and touching your own body and understanding what you're touching and where is so important. It's just one of those things. It's not all about just one side or the other. There's the spiritual and the physical aspects, which are so important to know as a secret woman. Common manifestations of womb imbalance or illness. So she notes for menstrual health, there's amenorrhea, which is the absence of the menstrual periods. So this can be due to anatomic abnormalities, hypothalamus or pituitary dysfunctions, other hormone system dysfunction or genetic defects, excess exercise and stress, premature menopause, and pregnancy. So I said a lot of things just then, and I figure I'll just go over some more of those in a little more detail in case you don't know what some of those terms mean, because they're kind of long ones. The anatomic abnormalities. So that would be something as in your womb has a missing uterus or fallopian tubes. This could be, I would assume, I'm pretty sure the term is used for both if that occurred surgically or if you were naturally born this way. Then we have the hypothalamus dysfunction. So that would be, the hypothalamus is a region in the forebrain that connects the, let me see what I wrote here. It coordinates the nervous system with things like your body temperature, your sleeping, your thirstiness, and other systems in your body. So that would also, those things would obviously impact your womb. So then also it mentions the pituitary dysfunction, which is a hormone related thing, which would, let me see. These hormones impact your metabolism, your growth, your blood pressure, your sexual maturity, your reproduction, and many other things in your body. So then she moves on to mentioning dysmenorrhea, which is menstrual cramps, which can be very debilitating for a lot of people. And especially this can be the result, she says, from uterine. So this is the result usually from uterine contractions during an ovulatory cycle, but specific cause cannot be determined in every case. Two common causes are endometriosis, the growth of endometrial tissue outside of the uterus, and the fibroid tumors. She also does mention that some birth control methods, and also, on the birth control packaging, some of them do mention this, that they also can contribute to you having cramps. But obviously this is a really personal choice for people to be able to choose what method they use because of the situations they're in. Some people just really can't have kids right now for whatever reasons, and so being able to work with your body on that and understand what it is that your birth control perhaps takes from you, or how you react to it, so that you can counteract that with other medicines in your life, so that you can still find that balance and still get through life and not be so stressed about pregnancy, or it's your full-time job doing the birth control, which I know for a lot of people it just often isn't conducive, and it's not something that they're even really good at, and so they don't want to be out here having abortions and such, which is also not spiritually something that people want to go through over and over and over again, back to back. And so it's reasonable when people choose to use birth control, but keep in mind that it does have those side effects, which you're going to have to keep an eye out for and counteract with some other ways that you act in your everyday life. So she mentions menorrhagia, which is the excessive duration or amount of menses lasting 5 to 10 days, accompanied by pain and discomfort, and can occur with fibroids, endometriosis, or hormone dysfunction. The hormone dysfunction, again, can be impacted by birth control. So the next section is sexually transmitted diseases, vaginitis, an inflammation of the vagina usually caused by bacterial or yeast infection. Symptoms and signs would be burning, itching, discharge, yellow or white, foul smelling, is also like another level or to that. Again, this section is really important because it highlights the fact that as sacred women who are out here trying to help others who have wombs really get through that healing, as well as ourselves, we do have to be honest about the limitations of what can be done in certain situations. And absolutely, if somebody is experiencing chronic illness, chronic issues, it's always important to first have them go and get tested for anything such as this, because then they can go ahead and get the treatment needed, and then go ahead and with a renewed health start down the path of wellness. So it's really important to make sure that we're being very honest with people about the wonders of how our ancestors and others were able to learn certain things about the human body, so that these things are able. And unfortunately, our community was tested on and used as guinea pig for a lot of this medical knowledge, which has left a lot of pain, and intergenerational trauma, and often trauma passed down through our very DNA. And so this is something that is really difficult, but the issue is that we do have to be really honest as sacred women and make sure that we are encouraging people from the very jump to get tested for these things, and just be completely honest and with a complete understanding of where they're starting from, because it could be something serious like fibroids, it could be something serious, and if we are not sure that that's what they have yet, there's not also a chance that we could apply some of these more natural methods. We may be just going blind in some cases. So having them have a complete understanding of these things, which most of the time it's pretty cheap, if not free, to get some testing depending on what state you're in, and there are ways to also fundraise and get help to get the testing as well. So finally, we're getting into, we still have a couple more. We have the reproductive system disorders. Endometriosis. The endometrium is made up of cells that create the lining of the uterus. These cells can break away and grow inside the uterine cavity, implanting themselves within the pelvis, ovaries, appendix, bowels, and or bladder, which can be very painful because those tissues are supposed to be soft, and this can lead to symptoms like menstrual cramps, chronic pain, pelvic scarring, adhesions within the womb, and may be associated with infertility because it can be harder to get pregnant and sustain the pregnancy. Fibroids are a mass of rapidly dividing cells that invade surrounding tissue. These cells rob neighboring normal cells of their nutrients. The symptoms include pain and cramping, unusual bleeding or discharges, clotting, severe menstrual cramps, and can lead to miscarriage. A genital prolapse or a prolapsed uterus is the condition in which the weakened pelvic muscle fails to hold the uterus and other pelvic organs in place. Often this is due to a prolapsed, impacted colon, or complications from labor and childbirth. So people feeling that pressure of the pelvis and feeling like they need to really work on their pelvis often do the squeezing of the vagina and the uterine, up in the cervical area as best as they can. Usually you're trying to really bring those muscles together in this way, and then in this way would be a really great mental way to do the squeezing. You also see people use yoni eggs for this purpose. Sometimes they'll do the exercises briefly and then expel it. Sometimes people keep it in because the crystal helps them with certain things. So the symptoms of this are typically the weakened vaginal and bladder muscles, frequent urination, lower back pain, abdominal pain, and may result in infertility, blocked tubes, and miscarriage as well. So for pregnancy health, she notes pregnancy-associated hypertension, such as elevation of blood pressure, headaches, visual disturbances, bloating, protein in the urine, and can result in the death of both fetus and mother. This is something that, as Black women, you will get blamed for going into into the hospital when you're pregnant. This is just something I remember being written on pieces of paper they handed to me. It was part of my file of paperwork to be given to me as a Black woman, was to blame my body for anything that was going to occur, because we just have this. And it didn't really get into any of the systemic reasons why, the medical racism, the stress of racism in our everyday lives, the oppression as women, or anything like that. It just basically blames you, blames your body. You are a Black woman, therefore you're going to have some kind of form of hypertension. You're going to be bloating. You're going to be having high blood pressure, blah, blah, blah. And it didn't really get into, and there's not even really a support system here's free foods for you so that we can support this not happening, or free education or more education for our doctors on why this would be and how to support us. It's a very messed up system. So this is just something I remember, that that's a time in particular that you're going to be really blamed for your body, and your body is supposed to seem like it's working against you at all times at that time. But again, there is the diet, the ways that we can live through it, and then there's also the fact that you can still be pregnant and have some kinds of bloating, have some kinds of these things, and you can still carry your baby as long as you often they try prematurely to induce and have C-sections, especially on Black women, that they would rather get that money and not have us just laboring around in the hospitals. There's miscarriage, which is the spontaneous abortion. When a pregnant woman delivers or loses the fetus before the 20th week, spontaneous abortion may result from infections, nutritional deficiency, structural or chromosomal abnormalities, diabetes, drug use, excess stress, and other unknown causes. Sometimes it just happens. Preterm delivery, premature birth. Birth of a premature infant between 20 and 37 weeks old. The cause of preterm delivery is often unknown. Risk factors can include untreated bacterial vaginosis, poor nutrition, and previous preterm birth. So nutrition you're going to see come up again and again, and that's so important. I think it's also important to note the part about drug use, because things like drinking really are drugs, you know what I mean? I really do want to get into that briefly, just because it's something that they do sometimes say in mommy groups, just drink a glass of wine, it's fine. But in reality, the only part of wine that's technically good for you is the grapes, which if you just eat grapes, you're gonna get that same thing. It's not the alcohol part is not what's good for you, it's the grape part. And not only that, but alcohol also is cancer causing. It causes up to 16 kinds of cancer, including breast cancer, and if only a couple drinks, 2 to 3 drinks a week, can up your chances of getting breast cancer by 30%. So that's really not something that you want to be doing in general a lot, but also specifically when pregnant especially. And so keeping that in mind, and keeping in mind that that's still a drug too, I think is really important. Now, I do understand some people do, smoke weed or something for just strictly for, nausea purposes. And I do think there are ways to also ingest marijuana or cannabis, I think is what we're supposed to call it, that is not smoking. So now that it's becoming more legal in places, I think that's becoming more of an option. And so I would encourage people who were worried about that type of thing to try to find alternative methods, like a really purely filtered bong, or let me think, like vaping of some sort perhaps would be a little bit better, so that you're not just purely going in on these other things. But I mean, they make edibles now that you can barely taste, and that might help settle your stomach as well. But there are salves as well. There's ways that you can just like really help yourself. So I do want to say, like, I do understand that there are things like that, but there are some things that are really worse for you. And I really want to just try to nip the thing in the bud about alcohol, because alcohol is like really one of the worst drugs for you out of all of the ones there are, especially whether legal or illegal. Just saying. Okay, so finally, let's get into menopause. Menopause is not an illness or any form of disease, but it is a normal part of going through life with a womb, honey. It is a normal thing. It is not something that we need to try to avoid. It's not something that we need to like totally brace ourselves for. If we're doing, the general things that we're supposed to be doing nutrition-wise and lifestyle-wise, menopause will have its ups and downs, like, life has been with a womb so far, right? We've had our ups and downs. Sometimes it's given us great pleasure. Sometimes it's given us great insight and created some of the best things that we've ever come up with. And sometimes it's been really hard. It's been really painful. Felt like it's been a burden almost sometimes, or a danger to us. It's been an up and down the whole life, and that's exactly how menopause is going to be as well, or is as well. It's not something, I know in media it's portrayed this whole crazy way, and of course there's also comedy that comes with it as well, but overall we shouldn't be out here fearing it, or hating our bodies because of it. It is the period of glandular changes that indicate the end of the menstrual cycle. It signals a time when you have the privilege of keeping your wise blood. It shifts your perspective to make your voice heard in the larger community. Honey, you are growing into the elder at this time. It is a transition time from that more youthfulness to the elder and a wise person of the community. Menopause is brought about by decreased production of the female sex hormones. It generally occurs between ages of 42 and 52, but premenopausal symptoms can begin as early as 35. Symptoms and signs include she says while it is natural, the indications that this is happening can be easy or gentle, or it can be more difficult. Those who are eating poorly, not getting enough movement and exercise into their life, living a very stressful lifestyle, I think is one of the main ones. But also, that gentle movement throughout your life, keeping your body circulating and stuff, keeping yourself well hydrated, making sure you're getting those nutrients into your life, which I understand, like, often people can go through phases, but the point of being a sacred woman is that we're trying to get it into such a natural habit that it's not something we even think about when we're getting vegetables and such into our lives. That's just something that we include, right? So, if you are doing those things, you might experience severe nervousness, irritability, depression, overexcitability, headaches, abdominal pains, rushes of blood to the head and upper body, which are typically called hot flashes, backaches, leg cramps, night sweats, and even nosebleeds. However, we have the power to prevent this and heal ourselves of the various toxic symptoms by eating foods and fresh fruit, by drinking fresh fruit and vegetables and herb teas, by maintaining a clean colon, by exercising and meditating daily, and above all, by healing or releasing all negative relationships and getting them out of our lives. Oh, goodness. Doesn't that just sound inspiring? Don't you just feel like, I want to start this tomorrow. I want to start tomorrow with some hot tea and then make myself a well-rounded breakfast with plenty of, veggies included, and continue that throughout the day. Or perhaps if you're somebody who does, what is it called? Intermittent fasting. You're going to start the first half of your day with just teas and water, and then you're going to start eating around noon with your vegetable and vegetarian meals, and really see, how that takes you as well. And I think that this week, really knowing these things that we've learned about our wombs, and about health and wellness, and also for the fact that we're going to be able to realize it's not only physically what we're putting into our mouths, but also the healing of relationships that we have in our everyday lives, the working on those relationships to do better ourselves so that we can perhaps inspire others, but also make sure that we're holding ourselves to the standard and upholding ourselves to our own standards as sacred women. Okay, so I wanted us to finish up with the womb wellness profile that we can get into here in our workbooks, as well as talk about the cleansing food plan next time. So we'll just get into what is our womb wellness profile and just go by intuition, or you can go ahead and read it, obviously, but we'll go by intuition for right now of what we might need to change and do. So you record for yourself a 0 to 3 for each of these items. You are going to use 0 if the condition never existed or no longer exists. You're going to use a 1 if the condition occurs infrequently, and you're going to use a 2 if the condition occurs frequently. 3 is a serious health challenge, endometriosis, cervical cancer, or traumatic episodes such as rape, molestation, childhood molestation, abortion. I'm going to hold these up for you, but what I'll also do is I will take a, scan a picture of them and put them onto the Patreon and drop a link for that in the description as well if you do not have the book. So she does say, though, I wanted to read at the top, the following womb wellness profile was divided in 6 categories of wellness that help you assess the current health of your womb. The profile aids you in the quest for womb wellness because it helps you keep accurate record of your womb health over time. It is suggested that after you record your current baseline, you continue to monitor your womb wellness for a minimum of 6 cycles. To get a clear picture of the state of your current menstrual period, you need to consider the intensity of the flow, light to heavy, clot-free, clotting, odor-free, or menstrual odor, and the number of days. The optimal would be 1 to 3. The average is 4 to 5, meaning that it is already in a little bit of a disease state, and then chronic is 6 to 10 days and beyond. So the 6 categories are menstrual health, vaginal health, sexual health, pregnancy health, menopause, and common illness. And you can go ahead and print this, or put it in your journal. At the end here, she says the score of 0 indicates womb wellness. Scores of 1, we're striving for lower scores. Low scores indicate a less toxic womb, less blockage of the womb, and thus more womb wellness. Remember, when you're measuring toxic conditions in the womb, lower scores are best. The grand total gives you an overview of the state of your womb and helps you establish a baseline of your progress towards achieving a 0 score. The 0 indicates an excellent womb wellness, so keep up your wonderful healing work. Scores of 1 with challenges, primarily in category A, indicate occasional blockage or that blockage is clearing. For maximum rejuvenation, continue womb cleansing regimen for 1 to 4 cycles. Scores of a 2 with challenges, primarily in category A and B, indicate frequent blockage. For maximum rejuvenation, continue the womb cleansing regimen for 4 to 6 cycles. Scores of 3 with challenges primarily in category C indicate constant and or acute blockages. There are no short-term or simple solutions to the challenges in the category C. So again, that's a reminder that some things are necessary to really get involved with the medical system, but also to mix that with the spiritual and ancient knowledge that we've learned in Sacred Woman and in other resources. I also wanted to point out how she noted that the womb cleansing regimen isn't something that you sustain for the duration of your life. It's something that you do with a more strict method for when you need cleansing and healing, and then you can also move to doing something that's a little more lenient and flexible with your schedules as time goes on, that's still balanced and healthy, but not perhaps the most strict, like raw vegan thing that you can be trying to do otherwise. All right, so that's all I want you to really work on, is just working on that health, working on the journaling and the noting of where your womb is right now in your journey. Maybe this is your first time, maybe it's your fourth or fifth time going through the Sacred Woman book and the gateways, but each time we go through, we learn a little something new, and through each year of our lives, perhaps we reflect on some trauma, or we reflect on what we've learned, and we grow from it, and we see it in a totally different light. So we're able to address things in a little bit different of a way. So I hope you enjoyed today and you enjoy your journaling. May your ancestors and spirit guides be with you at every crossroads. I'll see you next time.